Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another patrons only video. I'm still trying to figure out the light configuration so that there's no glare on my glasses. Maybe that's not possible. Maybe I just need to look it up, watch some YouTube videos, Google it. How do people on TV wear glasses and not have glare coming off of a light source? I don't know, but I need to be able to see. Now that I can see, my life has changed. I'm looking around like, wow, y'all can see details. It's amazing. I'm here because I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, and I've been kind of slacking in September on the patrons only content. And this is the reason why I get to live a good, financially stable life. So I do owe it to you to come and sit down as much as possible. What else is on my mind? Oh, this hair. I'm so over it. I don't want to do this. I'm never getting faux locks now. I'm just, it's too heavy. It's uncomfortable. My neck hurts. I'm ready to really take it out, but it's only been 8 days. And anybody who knows black hair knows 8 days is just, it's not enough time. I spent 6 hours getting my hair done, and I'm only going to have it in for 8 days. Or I spent, I don't know, $200 getting it done, and I'm only going to have it in for 8 days. It's such a waste, okay? I'm not balling like that. So I'm just going to suffer through it and like have an aching neck. But today I wanted to talk about the news and white people, because white people have been doing a lot recently. I guess we'll start with Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau, who is the Prime Minister of Canada, and he's like the woke bae of the moment. So ever since Obama has been out of office for the past 3 years, Justin Trudeau is North America's woke bae, progressive white man, even though, as I've been hearing more and more about what's happened in Canada, I recognize that I guess Justin Trudeau really isn't that progressive. He's, I guess, what we would call neoliberal in his impulses. I also didn't realize until like a year ago that his father was prime minister. For some reason, I thought Justin Trudeau was a man of the people, and it turns out he's just another privileged white man. Okay. And he's another privileged white man who has been in brown face. So while he was 29 and working at a private school, he attended an Arabian Nights theme party in brown face. And then apparently he did it earlier, maybe in high school or something. And it's like, I knew it. You know, you can't trust it. You can't trust it. Look, it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum as an adult. If you are a white person, and it really don't even really matter what kind of privilege you have, you've probably done something just unabashedly racist. It just have. And especially, you know, just knowing, having occupied spaces, growing up in wealthy suburbs, and then going to an extremely wealthy college, white folks with money is different. It is. It's just different. So I am mostly surprised that it just came out. I don't know. Like, how is this just coming out? It's just so funny. Like, people are really willing to keep the secrets of rich, powerful people, because it just seems like this was something that would come out during an election. Prime ministers are elected, right? I don't know enough about international geopolitics. And I felt the same thing about Ralph Northam in Virginia. It came out that when he was in medical school, there's a picture on his yearbook page where, and he says he doesn't know who is who or which is which, but there's a picture on his yearbook page where one person is in blackface and the other person is wearing a KKK robe. And Ralph says, "Oh, I don't know who that is. I don't think I'm in it." Why is it on your yearbook page, Ralph? Who put it there? Stop it, Ralph. What are you doing? So anyways, I think we just have to, but I brought that up to say, how did Ralph Northam is in his late 50s, early 60s? So for 30, 40 years, people have been keeping that secret? Wow. It's pretty crazy. So, no, it's not surprising. I saw that Justin Trudeau issued an apology. Nothing's going to happen to him. It's just like, white people got to do better. And, you know, I think the craziest thing is Do I believe that it's going to get significantly better in Gen Z or Gen Alpha? I learned that the generation after Z is Alpha. In some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. I just saw a story about some kids at a university, like in college, who were doing blackface. We see those stories pretty frequently. So I do believe that racism just evolves. I don't know if it ever is going to be completely eradicated, but still, I think it is our duty and our responsibility to like chip away at it, push back at it. Not just let that, because look, I'm about to get off on a tangent. So despite the fact that I don't know. People ask me, do you think that we will ever live without racism, that we will ever completely dismantle and defeat white supremacy? I don't know. I think it's possible. I think we can make gains. I think that there is a case for hope. Absolutely. Despite the fact that I'm not an optimist, I'm not a pessimist, I'm not a nihilist, I'm not a fatalist. But I do think that it's possible for us to push back and move forward and whatever. But what I absolutely know for sure is that regression is possible. So if there is no consistent opposition, if there is no resistance, it is absolutely possible for us to regress societally, to have fewer rights, fewer freedoms, less access. So if you are invested in at least maintaining any kind of semblance of progress that we have today, then it is not an option to say, oh, I don't care, whatever happened. No. Something's gonna happen. And unfortunately, we're living in a political time where we're seeing regression is possible. Forward movement for the right and far right in this country and globally is possible. So we gotta be aware. Okay, so that was my first white people story of the day. My second one was, and I'll put a link to this below, but I was reading this article about a young feminist woman. She's like a viral feminist. Her name is Lauren Duca. And Lauren became like a sensation a couple of years ago. She wrote one article for Teen Vogue that went crazy viral called Donald Trump is Gaslighting America. And then she went viral again for being on Tucker Carlson's show, and they had a really contentious back and forth. And then that went viral too, and so she immediately became like a viral feminist darling. And this was a profile of her, and it kind of was like half expose, half profile. And it just really made me think that like we really do have to vet the leaders, the activists, the voices who get pushed to the top. Super. I don't think that overnight fame should be for activists or for journalists. I think that like a culture where journalists, thought leaders are influencers is not a good one. I think influencer culture is antithetical to the kinds of checks and balances, the kind of self-reflection that makes a really good thinker. And I go back and forth with this all the time. I really, really do. Because I want to build things and I want to hire people and I want to do new stuff and innovate, and that requires money and that requires finances, it requires access, and getting access to that stuff requires me to be like out in front and being a name and all of that kind of stuff, and amassing a following. But I do think that it's really hard to have integrity intellectually and to have a massive viral following. It's really, really difficult. And I worry that I'm doing a bad job of the thinking part and doing a good job of the influencer part sometimes. And so with Lauren, she was challenged in that article on some of her ideas. She taught a class at NYU, and you can look up the syllabus for that class. It wasn't nothing, girl. What are you doing? But that's not just her fault. It's also NYU's fault. Because you gave this woman access to a classroom, and she didn't really have no credentials. You know, Lauren, I think, is a little bit younger than me. And she was getting access to do all this stuff because she had one good article, some good tweets. And that stuff is not not valuable. I was going to say it's not invaluable, but invaluable means the opposite of what I was trying to say. But that stuff has value. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not nothing. And it's not easy to be a viral sensation. It's not easy to become a very popular influencer. Because if it were, everybody would do it. But at the core of that, particularly if you're teaching, if you're writing books, if you're out in front as a leading feminist voice, a leading voice for young feminists, there's got to be work, there's got to be rigor, there's got to be study. And then in that article, a lot of the students of the class that she taught at NYU, they complained about her. They said she wasn't a good teacher. She was just talking about herself the whole time. She didn't follow the syllabus. She got mad at a student for not speaking English. And it's like, that's on NYU. You just letting anybody, people are paying money to take classes at your university, and you just letting anybody in the classroom? Now, it's her too, because she needs to not be targeting people because they can't speak perfect English. But I looked at the syllabus. The syllabus was it was called a feminist journalist or something. 30% of the grade was one op-ed. An op-ed is 600 to 800 words. One article. One? That's not work. I'm sorry, it's not work. So, yeah. I saw Roxane Gay tweeting about this, and, her take, her one tweet hot take was, wow, white women get a lot of space to just be fuck-ups. And they do. And it's so, when I was reading that article, and I was just like, oh my God, girl. And I think Lauren follows me, and I follow her on Twitter. And she has some, I don't think that she has bad intentions. And she has some good ideas. But she definitely got a lot. I mean, she's been profiled right after those tweets in the New York Times. There's people who dedicate their lives to doing work and activism and theory and thought, and they're not in the New York Times. We just love a young, conventionally attractive white woman. And it seems like maybe Lauren doesn't have a whole lot of she's not great at being self-reflective, because in that article, she did an interview, and the writer of the profile, sat down with her and went to her class and, tried to get a lot of feel for who Lauren is. And the profiler, the writer, was challenging Lauren on some of her ideas, on some of the allegations against her, on some of the maybe not so great things that she said. And Lauren was just so indignant, you're being too hard on me. You're more hard on me because you wouldn't be this hard on me if I were a man. And as a black woman, reading her words and just seeing how indignant and upset she was because this writer, who was a woman of color, this woman was challenging her. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't be here if you were black. You wouldn't be in that space if you were a black woman. So you gotta take the good with the bad. And I also think that something that I've become much more in tune to. My phone rang, sorry. Something that I have become much more sensitive to recently is white women in particular who are wrong. You're not right. you're wrong. I'm much more sensitive. I don't know what, something has really clicked for me, but I am getting so annoyed recently with white women being like, if I were a man, you wouldn't be doing this. Yeah, but you also are allowed to do it because you're white and you're a woman. You know? So I just get, it just makes me like cringe when I think a lot of white feminists in particular lack a certain kind of self-awareness. They possess a refusal to be reflective in the privileges that they have, in the access that they have. It's a good time to be a white feminist woman. It's always a good time to be a white woman. In the United States in 2019. So, yeah, sexism is a thing, but like, you know, so is legitimate criticism. Okay, that was my first white woman story. The second white woman story we're just going to touch on is I read a profile yesterday of Taylor Swift in Rolling Stone. You know, I think Taylor is a really interesting pop culture figure. I like to read about pop culture. I do. Even if I don't love Taylor Swift, I don't love everything about her. It's interesting to me to read about her because of the humongous space that she occupies in pop music right now. So I read that profile, and it did make me feel more empathetic toward her. I do think that Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are snakes. They are shady. They are manipulative. They're trifling, but so is Taylor, right? And so it's interesting to see the two snaky, you know, shady, strategic, manipulative worlds collide and what the fallout is for that. And so reading that profile and hearing her version of what happened between her and Kanye, and honestly, it sounds pretty convincing. I believe that Kanye West is the type of person who cares. So she argued that Kanye just wants to look cool. He just wants to do what's going to get him praise and validation. And so he would be cool and cute with Taylor behind the scenes and then come out and then he and Kim would be nasty and mean. And I actually believe that. And so she talked about one instance where when Kanye West won the Video Vanguard Award in, I don't know, 2012, 2013, 2011, not 2011, maybe 2012, that Kanye called Taylor and asked her to present him the award. And you know, Kanye is all about spectacle. He's all about what's going to get headlines and what's going to be shocking and, you know, whatever. He has a deluded sense of self-importance too. And so she said he was so sweet and he asked me and he was so kind and he was charming and whatever. And then she did it. I don't know why I don't remember this. I don't remember this moment. And I'm a faithful VMA watcher. Maybe I didn't watch the VMAs that year. I wonder who else performed in 2012. But then after she got up there and presented him the Video Vanguard Award, that he got up on stage and was like, you know, MTV had Taylor give it to me for ratings. And I went back and watched that clip. And he did say that. Now, it don't make sense to me. It don't make sense to me to try to play her like that. Don't try to play her to the left like that when you were on the phone and called her and asked her to do that. And I think that she was using that to underscore the kind of back and forth, kind of backstabby, frenemy relationship that they've had since 2009. And as much as I think Beyonce is brilliant and Single Ladies is a terrible song with a great video, anybody gonna be mad if somebody rushes up on stage and says, you don't deserve this. Anybody's gonna have resentment, and that resentment is legitimate. So she was just talking about that, and it's like, I think I believe that. And I also, just from watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Kimberly is not a good person. I'm sorry. The way that she talks to her family, that couldn't be me. Sorry, you got one time to verbally abuse me, and then I'm out. So, I don't fuck with it at all. That Rolling Stone interview did make me like Taylor more. I appreciate Taylor as a songwriter. I went back and listened to Lover. I like a lot of the songs on Lover. I just don't want to see Pigeon Toe dancing. That's really it for me. Okay? She's just not a good performer. And I don't know, maybe somebody's not telling her. We are not being honest enough about it. But, or actually, I was going to say don't nobody want to see that. But actually, a lot of people want to see it. I just find it to be very unimpressive. And when we're living in the age of Beyonce, hell, the age of Rihanna, because Auntie, or do you call it anti, whatever you want to say, that was an album. An album. So I just don't like that. And then, we don't really need any more, blonde, white mediocrity. Do what you're good at. But I will say about Taylor, she did on BBC Live, she did a cover of a Phil Collins song called Can't Stop Loving You. Woo! It's fire. It's flames. That I'd never heard that song before she covered it. It's so freaking good. So I suggest everybody go listen to it. When she's in her bag, she's in it. But everybody can't be Beyonce. Accept it. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was, somebody asked me, actually a couple people have asked me to talk about Hello Privilege, It's Me, Chelsea. So Chelsea Handler has decided that she's going to be a woke white activist now. A representative of the good ones. And for the past couple of years, she's been talking about reckoning with her privilege and calling other people out and doing all that. And I'm for it. We say all the time that white women in particular need to get themselves together, get their kind, get your folks, talk to them, because we've done it. It's not working. So if Chelsea Handler wants to take on the work of being the white lady ambassador to other white women, I'm great with that. So I watched her new documentary on race, and I have some thoughts. So the first thought was she's obviously trying to paint us a picture of the enormous wealth that she has and the privilege that she has. So it starts off with Latino people. It's allergy season. It's allergy o'clock. So she starts off with Latino people cleaning her house. And the house is beautiful. Gorgeous. Crazy. Like, it needs to be, I'm sure it's already been an Architectural Digest. Like, that's how gorgeous and beautiful the house is. So it's like, okay, yeah, awesome. And then she talks to different people about race. So she talked to Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart about it initially. I was really struck by Tiffany Haddish talking about, like, literally crying and saying that white people privilege is just knowing where you come from and being able to trace your lineage. That is true. I'm just always interested and fascinated by people who are so emotionally affected by that. I'm just not. It's just not. I think it would be wonderful to be able to definitively trace where I'm from and the names and the ancestors and all of that. I think it would really be wonderful. Would it transform my life fundamentally? I don't think so. And I don't have a desire to do any of those DNA tests because I think it's fake news. I don't think it's real. I think that stuff is a guess and, like, maybe not even a great guess. So that was interesting to me. The next part that was interesting to me, sorry, let me pull up my notes now. The next part that was interesting to me was, then she went to either UCLA or USC, one of those LA schools, and sat in on like a community talk back night where I guess a lot of members of that university's community and its people of color they come together and talk about things, and race and all of that is supposed to be a safe space. And she came in there, and the students basically dragged her. They were saying a documentary is not enough. You came into this space and you take like a white person, you're not helping us. All you're doing is extracting. I thought that was a really interesting thing. Another man said, whenever we're talking about privilege, the onus is put on people of color to, discuss it and describe it and justify our experiences. Really good thoughts. And I also thought, look, I appreciate Chelsea Handler for being in spaces where people are coming for her neck. I do. And I do not believe in giving out I like cookies. It's not necessary. It's not in our best interest. However, I'm not going to shit on somebody for trying to do some work. As long as you're not actively hurting me, as long as you're not making it worse, as long as you're not spreading misinformation, if you're trying to do the work that you know how to do that might change the minds of the people in your community, great. That's what we need white folks to do. I think we've really got to make a decision about what we want. Because, and I always say I reject this idea that like we're never gonna have to, we're not need to teach you, and it's like sometimes somebody's gonna have to do some teaching. And so I'm okay with having a conversation with a white person who is genuinely open and willing to learn and who wants to do better, if you're going to take that knowledge and spread it and do better and do more work. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't know if it's in our best interest as marginalized folks, as people of color, to be so closed. But I get it, right? You don't want white people to come in here and extract. But, I agreed with the professor there where he was like, another phone call. Sorry. We have to have conversations. We have to have dialogues. And then she went to Alabama, I believe, or was it Mississippi? It was either Alabama or Mississippi to talk to Ruby Sales at the National Museum of Racial Justice. Where is that? Let me look it up. Sorry. National Museum the lynching memorial. National Memorial for Peace and Justice. This is not telling me. It's in Montgomery, Alabama. I freaking love Alabama. My father is from rural Alabama. I love Alabama, just like I love Mississippi. When I tell you that, like, I don't know, this is problematic, but I would totally buy a plantation. But, like, I can buy a plantation, right? Wouldn't be no weddings on it. I mean, we wouldn't be, white people can't come. But I feel like I can buy a plantation. Right? That's not wrong. Somebody has to own the plantation. So why can't it be? And first of all, somebody has to own a plantation. I deserve land, or, my people, maybe not me individually, but, descendants of slaves. We were promised that land anyway. I don't think that there's a moral problem with that. All I'm saying is, I love it. I really do love it there. So anyways, she went to the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which is like, has all of these lynching monuments, sat down with organizer Ruby Sales. Ruby Sales told a horrifying story about how she was standing right next to a white man who was murdered right in front of her for working toward equality. And he basically saved her life. Horrible. Then she talked to voting rights organizer Latasha Brown. Latasha told a horrible story about how they were trying to transport elderly folks to go vote. And somebody was like, nigger, where are you taking all these people? I mean, I'm sure that they didn't say nigger. That was my civil rights era reenactment. But they were questioned, and apparently, like, somebody said it's illegal to transport a lot of people, elderly Black people, to the polls. That was ridiculous. Obviously, she sat down with the white privilege ambassador, Tim Wise. And, I've thoughts about Tim Wise and the platform that he gets, but when I thought about my concerns about featuring Tim Wise so prominently, and then I thought, okay, who is the audience for this documentary? It's not me. I'm not the person who's going to get the most from this. I do think that Chelsea made this documentary, which probably should have been longer, probably should have been at least 2 or 3 episodes to really dig deep, because it was only an hour. An hour? That's like 1 episode of a Netflix show. Come on now. But I do think that white people listen to other white people. So it is probably going to be useful for Chelsea to sit down with Tim Wise and have them deconstruct white privilege and the statistics and inequality together. So that's fine. She sat down with that man. I want to call him Kumail Nanjiani, but that's not his name. Not Kumar, the man with that crazy hair who had a late night show, and Rashad Robinson. What the hell is that man's name? This is offensive. Not to him, but I shouldn't have called him 2 Indian names. Man with crazy hair, comedian. He's from Oakland. We're Googling this real time. What's his name? Oh, God. Bobcat is the first name. Okay, no. W. Kamau Bell. Okay. W. Kamau. I call that man Kumar. I'm offensive. I'm canceled. So W. Kamau Bell and Rashad Robinson, and they kind of had a little bit of a conversation with her. My favorite person in this whole documentary was historian Carol Anderson. I love her so much. I did a whole video before the midterms about her book. I mean, that was before people were watching my videos, which is so crazy. It's so crazy. The growth that's happened in a year. But I did a whole review of a book that she wrote about basically voter disenfranchisement, how Republicans are working to kick poor people, people of color off the voting rolls all across this country. They're doing it systematically. They are enshrining it in laws to make it legal and acceptable practice, standard practice, to just kick predominantly Black folks off of voter rolls across the country. She talked about one instance where there's this match system, and it was found that 70% of the people who were removed from the voter rolls using that system in the state of Georgia were Black. Intentional, The GOP is full of nasty, ugly cheaters. What else did I like about that document? Oh, I thought it was really interesting when she sat down with her high school boyfriend, Tyshawn. So this is basically about Chelsea talking about, I have been very safe, risk averse in my life. I've gone out on a couple limbs, but never no illegal limbs. Like I said, I didn't even try an edible until I was 28 years old. And Chelsea talking about all the stupid, risky, ridiculous stuff that she did and how she still never had any fear of the police. And she saw, even when she was crazy and dating this kid who dealt heroin or whatever, she still had no fear of the police, no fear of being arrested. She was never arrested. That she and her boyfriend would be stopped and he would get picked up and she would be let go. And not until recently did she ever think of that had anything to do with white privilege. And it's like, wow. White people are living in a different world. It's a different world than where you come from, I had my first traumatic experience with a police officer when I was 4 or 5. I remember viscerally what that felt like. The abuse that I was witnessing. And I feel like 5 is the oldest that I would have been. So, just being able to go through life and not understand that the rules are different for you. Interesting. But look, Chelsea is 44 years old. a part of me wants to say, oh my God, bitch, really? You just figuring this shit out? Really? After almost half a century on the planet? But then the other half of me has to be like, okay, the more the merrier. You know, we're yelling at people to do the work, educate yourself, get your people, teach your people. Whenever that happens, it happens. But also, I'm still unlearning things. I'm still learning. When I'm 44, somebody will be like, bitch, you just found out about this. You're just coming to the right conclusion. I'm sure. That's life. It's what happens. So I can't be mad, or I'm not, I have to temper my resentment about that. It was an okay documentary. It should have been longer. I do like that there were a good number of Black women. I think a lot of times when people do those documentaries, it's too Black male focused. And I like that she talked to like big names, super educated people who are activists, organizers in the community. I like that she had a real conversation with Tyshawn's mom, and Tyshawn's mom had some really thoughtful and poignant things to say about generational trauma. Tyshawn he was supposed to go to UNLV. He got picked up for marijuana possession, got ensnared in the system, ended up doing 14 years in prison, whole life derailed over marijuana possession. Nuts. And then Chelsea Handler is who Chelsea Handler is. Crazy, right? But very typical. Results typical. But anyway, she went to Tyshawn's house where she actually lived for a little while, sat down with his mom. His mom was talking about she was doing drugs and she felt resentment for her mother, and then she wasn't able to be the best mother to Tyshawn, and Tyshawn had that resentment and he went his own way, and it's like it's these generational curses. I really liked that she talked about it like that. That was good. Did I have any other thoughts? Let's look. Did I have any other? Oh, before I got off of my Tyshawn thing, I like that this was not like an all lives matter. I think sometimes people feel so pressured to do, you gotta tell both sides. You gotta hear both sides. No, you don't. So I liked that Chelsea didn't do the all lives matter thing. She didn't do the blue lives matter thing. She did sit and talk to some racist white people. She did. I think that's also interesting too. I personally, I like to hear the thoughts of racist white folks. She went to Orange County, which is, if you watch The Real Housewives of OC, that is the seat of privilege, the seat of suburban privilege. It's a different kind, I'm from the suburbs, so I know like a certain type of like white mom who stays at home and drinks all day, but that's like the height of that, the peak of that. And so that was an interesting conversation. And it was interesting because they were all Republicans, clearly. And they were like, no, white privilege doesn't exist. No, it doesn't exist. Black people have privilege. They go to college or whatever. And at one point in the conversation, one of the women, the woman with dark hair, Chelsea was talking to her about not being afraid of the police because she's white. And the dark-haired woman was like, I never thought of that. I never thought about the fact that I'm never afraid of driving down the highway and not being stopped because I'm white. And she was like, oh, well, in that case, that it is real. It is real. And so that woman in that moment with Chelsea had a little bit of an awakening. And then another woman was like, what's real? Like immediately she jumped on it. She's like, what's real? You think white privilege is real? And the woman immediately corrected herself and was like, well, maybe not white privilege, but Black disprivilege. And it's like, woman, you said what you said. You just don't want your white lady friends, So anyways, I think a lot of it is about peer pressure and our networks and all of that. I thought that was really interesting. She went to Oktoberfest and people were like, it's not real. It's not, voting is when we're talking about all the voter suppression, the line that I've been hearing since I was a little kid, people talking about voting is a privilege, not a right. What? It's a fucking right. What are you talking about? So anyways, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was good enough. Was it great? Maybe it wasn't great for me because this is all just regurgitated information, but it was a solid A for effort. I would give Chelsea. She didn't do harm. I think that's the biggest thing. And for a long time, I did not fuck with Chelsea Handler because she just epitomized like white lady privilege, white lady entitlement. She made off-color jokes that I found to be overtly racist, and people were just laughing at it. And there's another thing, you know, black men love to empower racist white ladies. I've gotten into real arguments with black men over some of Chelsea Handler's racial humor. But I like that, you know, we all are growing, we're all evolving, we're all changing. If it took Donald Trump to be elected for you to get to a point where you are realizing that like shit is fucked up and racism exists, okay, you know, it's like, okay, better late than never. Yeah. So, let me just check my notes, see if there's any other white people news that we need to discuss. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Oh, I thought it was interesting. She went to Tennessee. She talked to a white rapper named Jelly Roll. That was funny. But Jelly Roll infiltrated some class analysis into this racial analysis. I do think that that's useful. I did not feel like he was derailing. Sometimes when white folks jump in and try to say it's class too, you'll be like, shut the fuck up. But I like that Jelly Roll had a good balance of, yes, he's a white rapper and he goes by Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll had a good balance of saying, yeah, black people are under attack. The police are crazy out here. They doing too much. There's too many black people in prison. But also, if you are a rich white person and you can afford a good defense attorney, you're going to get a lighter sentence than a poor white person. I think that's a useful analysis here. And then she talked to an activist or an organizer in New Jersey, and there was one statistic that said in New Jersey, a black kid is 30 times more likely than a white kid to be incarcerated. That's the highest incarceration disparity in the country. I do think it's useful for us to deconstruct some of these false ideas we have about, oh, it's so bad in the South. Everything is so horrible in the South. It's so bad. It's fucked up in the North too. And it's fucking cold, okay? So, if you're going to deal with some of the worst residential segregation in the country happens in the North. School segregation in the North. So, that's why I'm just not, you know, people be saying stuff about the South and I can never live there. And I'm just like, well, I can never live where you live. It's cold as fuck. It's miserable. And you got racism. And my family doesn't live there. So I thought that was super useful. I think, you know, that's all the white foolishness that I've got today. Maybe this will be like a segment like white foolishness. White foolishness. Maybe that'll be a series over on Patreon. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for being patrons. I appreciate you enormously. I will talk to you later. Bye.